he offered the martyrs as a perfect offering to God, laughing and smiling, ready to die. The 3rd century AD was a period of intense turmoil for the Roman Empire. The great empire was crumbling under a series of weak rulers, but there was one thing that united these emperors: the hatred towards the Christians. These pagans hated the new religion and were doing everything they could to wipe it out. But it was during this time that the church had some of its greatest martyrs, men and women who risked everything to remain faithful to Jesus Christ. One of them was St. Lawrence, a man who was roasted alive, but he did it with a smile on his face. Today we will look at the life and death of St. Lawrence, the saint who laughed at death. Lawrence was born in 225 AD in Hispania, now part of Spain. His father was a wealthy landowner, so Lawrence grew up in luxury, but despite his privilege, he was unhappy. He felt that something was missing in his life, and he couldn't understand it. One day, however, everything changed. Lawrence met a group of Christians, and their faith fascinated him. After hearing their teachings, Lawrence realized that what he was looking for all along was a relationship with Jesus Christ. So he abandoned his old life and devoted himself to God. There is very little known about Lawrence's early life, and most of the information comes from legends. Historians believe that after becoming a Christian, he traveled to Rome and became the archdeacon of the Roman Church. The archdeacon was an important position, serving directly under the bishop. They were in charge of guarding the church's treasures and distributing aid to the poor and sick. But Lawrence didn't see the treasures as precious metals and jewels, but as the people in need of help. He dedicated his life to serving the poor, believing that they were the true treasures of the church. But the time came when those treasures would be tested. In 258 AD, the Roman Emperor Valerian launched a brutal campaign against Christians. He ordered the arrest of clergy and lay people alike and subjected them to horrific tortures. Many Christians were put to death, but this didn't stop Lawrence from continuing his work. He kept helping the poor and preparing for his inevitable arrest. Finally, the prefect of Rome, Captain Gatian, arrived at Lawrence's house to arrest him. According to legend, Lawrence asked for a few days to gather the church's treasures and promised to hand them over to the authorities. But instead of collecting money and valuables, Lawrence went to the poor and gave them all he had. When he returned to the captain, he said, "Here are the treasures of the church," gesturing to the beggars. The captain was furious and threw Lawrence into prison. There he spent 5 days, praying and waiting for his fate. On the 6th day, he was brought before the emperor. Valerian ordered Lawrence to renounce his faith, but the saint refused. As punishment, the emperor sentenced him to death by roasting him alive on a grill. This was a common form of execution in ancient times, but it was particularly cruel and humiliating. The victim was strapped to a metal grill and then placed over a fire. As the flames enveloped the grill, the victim would be burned alive, often forced to watch as their fellow prisoners suffered the same fate. It was a terrifying and agonizing way to die. When Lawrence heard his sentence, he calmly replied, "I have already been sentenced to death many times by you, and I have given thanks to God that I might suffer something for the name of Christ. This death is no new thing to me." Then Lawrence was taken to the place of execution. The crowd gathered to watch the show, but they were surprised by what they saw. Lawrence wasn't afraid. He was calm and serene, almost as if he was going on a picnic. He told the executioners to turn him over because one side was already roasted. This witty remark shows Lawrence's sense of humor, even in the face of death. As Lawrence was placed on the grill, he prayed, "Receive me, Heavenly Father, in thy mercy, and in that day, I desire to receive the crown of immortality which thou hast promised." After he finished his prayer, the executioners lit the fire underneath the grill. The flames rose and engulfed Lawrence's body. At first he winced as the pain of the fire hit him, but then a smile appeared on his face. He was experiencing excruciating pain, but he also felt a deep sense of peace. He knew that he was dying for his faith, and that gave him strength. Lawrence stood firm, and after 3 hours, he breathed his last breath. The crowd watched in silence as the flames finally died down and the smoke cleared away. There in the center of the grill lay the body of St. Lawrence, the martyr who had laughed in the face of death. After Lawrence's death, many people converted to Christianity. His bravery and faith had made an impression on them, and they wanted to know more about the God he had served so faithfully. Also, Lawrence's story inspired many works of art throughout history. The Renaissance painter Caravaggio depicted Lawrence's martyrdom in a painting that shows the saint's serene expression as he faces the grill. Another famous painting of Lawrence's death is a dramatic engraving by the German artist Albrecht Dürer. Lawrence's story also inspired several musical compositions, including a symphony by Felix Mendelssohn and an opera by Henry Purcell. But there is more to Lawrence's story than just his martyrdom. His life teaches us about the importance of serving the poor and standing up for our beliefs. In a world where people are often judged by their wealth and power, Lawrence reminds us that true greatness comes from serving others and living according to our values. We may face persecution and hardship for our beliefs, but we must remain steadfast and courageous in the face of adversity. Lawrence's example continues to inspire people today to stand up for what they believe in, no matter what the cost may be. We don't know exactly when Lawrence died, but it's believed to be in 258 AD. He was only 33 years old. Despite his short life, Lawrence left a lasting impact on the world. His story has been passed down through generations and continues to inspire people today. One of the most interesting aspects of Lawrence's story is the connection between his martyrdom and a meteor shower. Every year, on August 10th, the Earth passes through a path of debris left by a comet, resulting in a spectacular display of shooting stars. This event is known as the Tears of St. Lawrence. The tradition holds that as Lawrence was being roasted alive, he prayed for God to take his soul, and in response, God sent a shower of tears to wash away his pain. Whether this story is true or not, it's a beautiful example of the power of faith. Lawrence's courage and piety have been recognized for centuries. He is the patron saint of the poor, librarians, and cooks. What lessons can we learn from St. Lawrence? First, we can learn about his courage. Lawrence was willing to give his life for his faith. He knew that he would be tortured and killed, but he didn't run away or hide. He stayed in Rome and helped the Christians in need. Second, we can learn about his dedication. Lawrence was an archdeacon of the Roman Church. He was responsible for taking care of the church's property and making sure that the poor were fed. He took his job seriously, and he did everything he could to help the people he was in charge of. Finally, we can learn about his piety. Lawrence was a devout Christian. He loved God and he wanted to serve him. He prayed every day, and he tried to live according to the teachings of Jesus Christ. He was rewarded for his piety when he was able to maintain his faith and hope even as he was being roasted alive. St. Lawrence was a man who faced death with a smile. He was a martyr who didn't deny his faith even when he was tortured. He was a saint who lived a life of service and ended it with a prayer. He is an example to us all of what it means to be brave, dedicated, and pious. May his story inspire us to be better people. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you in his care.